I thought my boyfriend was dying of cancer. But when I found out I was pregnant and suggested going to the hospital together, he confessed everything.
I met Dylan 3 years ago at a friend's party. He wasn't the type to catch your eye at first sight, not the tallest, not the loudest, but there was something real in his eyes. We both weren't big fans of loud company, and somehow we immediately found ourselves in the kitchen, just the two of us, chatting about books, movies, and life. It was easy. He turned out to be smart, kind, and, as it seemed to me then, real. 6 months later, we were already living together. He was working remotely, and I was studying for a master's degree at university. There were arguments, of course, who doesn't? But overall, everything seemed real and strong. Until one day, I began to notice that our relationship was changing. I was growing up, building a career, making new friends, and he seemed to have frozen. We no longer had common topics. Sex became a rarity, and even shared breakfasts became awkward. Plus, I met a guy at work who made my heart beat 3 times faster. There was nothing between us, there couldn't be while I was in a relationship. I'm not that kind of person. But I felt like I wanted to try, and for me that's definitely a sign that my relationship isn't working anymore. So I decided to talk to Dylan. To say that maybe we should take a break. I need to tell you something, he interrupted me before I could say a word. I have cancer. I froze. Everything inside me sank. What? Lymphoma. Doctors don't give clear prognoses. He didn't cry. He just calmly explained that a few months ago he started having stomach pains. He went to the doctor. He took tests. Then there was a biopsy. The diagnosis was lymphoma. He didn't want to scare me, he hoped that it would be a mistake. But now everything was confirmed. He started the treatment. I was crushed. I didn't even think about breaking up after those words. Everything inside me screamed, he's dying, and you wanted to leave? It was a hard fight. I wanted to be with him during all the procedures, but he said he didn't want me to see him weak. He courageously communicated with the doctors and took all the therapy on his own. I looked after him. I cooked food, carried out basins when he was sick, he said it was from the chemo. I took him to his procedures, and then met him by taxi. He started shaving his head, he said in advance. He didn't want me to see his hair falling out in clumps. He became thinner, wore baggy clothes. It was scary. It was just unbearable for me mentally. I just didn't know what to do. I wanted to tell my family, but he said he wasn't ready yet. He said he wanted to win and tell this story to all his relatives, so that they wouldn't feel sorry for him, but admire him. I understand him, it's terrible to think how my parents will take this news. It was our fight, we went through it together, just the two of us, secretly. But still, I told my grandmother and best friend. They don't communicate with his relatives and I knew for sure that they would never let it slip. But at least I could speak out, cry with them. Because I didn't want to show Dylan how broken I was. He had to see optimism in my eyes, I know that it is very important. I must say, our relationship became much closer. Interest returned, or so it seemed to me. I constantly wanted to be near him, to hug him. After all, I understand that such moments may not be many left. Of course, I didn't say anything like that to him. He needs an optimistic attitude. I was going through all of this inside myself. But sometimes I would break down and quietly cry in the shower, to the sound of the water, so that he wouldn't hear. We hardly had sex at that time. He said that he had no strength, and after the therapy his libido was decreasing. But one time, just one, there was an emotional outburst. He cried, I cried, and that night we were closer than in the last 6 months. It was like a breath of air, as if we were truly loving each other again, despite everything. And then I found out I was pregnant. First, denial. Then panic. Then the thought, he's dying, and I'm carrying his child. What if the chemotherapy affected the fetus? What if there's a risk of genetic mutations? I know that during a course of such therapy, sperm motility drops sharply, and the chances of conception are extremely small. So it's a miracle? Then I can't think about preventing pregnancy. What's the best thing to do? What if we lose the fight against cancer? Then I'll be alone with the baby? But it will be his baby, a memory of him. Anyway, with all this whirlwind of thoughts, I realized that I had to tell Dylan. I can't make this decision alone. It wouldn't be fair. The next evening, I sat next to him on the couch. He was pale again, wrapped in a hoodie, holding tea in his hands. Dylan, I need to tell you something. I'm pregnant. He froze. We need to go to the clinic. Discuss it with the doctors. I'm worried about the baby, chemotherapy, it could affect the DNA, the embryo. He didn't answer right away. He just sat there with his mouth open. And then he whispered. I'm not sick. I don't have cancer. The world collapsed. I looked at him, and my head was empty. What? I don't have cancer. I made it all up. He started crying. Not theatrically, not demonstratively, quietly, soundlessly, with his mouth open and his face distorted. I knew you wanted to leave. I saw the way you looked at me, like you didn't love me anymore. And then I made it up. I thought you'd stay close, maybe everything would come back to life. I didn't know what to do when you stayed. I didn't know how to get out. It had gone too far. I thought you'd leave, he kept saying. It was as if you weren't here anymore. I didn't know how else. How to make you stay. So you decided to play at death? You made me believe that I was losing you, just so I wouldn't lose me? I sat and looked at the man I once loved, and now feared. He didn't hit, didn't scream, didn't drink. But what he did was violence of a different kind. The lie I built my victim on turned out to be empty. And I was pregnant. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just got up and went to the bathroom. I sat on the floor, hugging myself. And was silent. 2 days passed. I went to my friends. He doesn't write. Or maybe he does, but I blocked him everywhere. Now I'm sitting on her couch, holding my hands on my stomach and trying to understand, what's next? How am I going to tell my mom that my baby's father is a liar who faked cancer so I wouldn't leave him? How am I going to explain this to my grandma who prayed for his health every week? How am I going to tell my friend who brought him homemade pies to boost his immunity? And what am I going to tell my child when he or she asks one day, "Where's my dad?" I don't know. I'm just breathing. 1 minute at a time. Because right now, that's all I can do. What I have now is that my relationship has fallen apart, I have no place to live, and I'm going to have a baby. Not a bad start, huh? What should I do now? I have no idea. Lord, please tell me that I'm not alone in this situation. Now it seems to me that no one in the world would manipulate such a terrible disease. I just can't wrap my head around how I could not notice the catch. I feel so stupid. Even now I am ashamed to write this. But I just need to talk to someone else who doesn't hate Dylan after what he did, like my friend does. I need a fresh head. And wisdom to accept what is happening in my life now.